You've heard of the Sigma male, the lone wolf, the outsider, the man who moves through life without seeking validation. But what about the Sigma female? For those who don't fit the mold, who don't chase approval, who refuse to be placed in a box, this one's for you. Let's dive into the evolution of the Sigma female concept. The rise of the Sigma female, a concept for the unconventional woman. You've heard of the Sigma male, the lone wolf, the outsider, the man who moves through life without seeking validation. He doesn't play by society's rules. He doesn't seek dominance like an alpha, nor does he follow like a beta. He simply exists on his own terms, independent, self-sufficient, and often misunderstood. But what about the Sigma female? For a long time, society has tried to define women in rigid categories. The alpha female, bold, dominant, a leader. The beta female, nurturing, cooperative, a team player. And then there's the Sigma female, a woman who doesn't fit into any predefined mold. She isn't concerned with status or social approval. She doesn't follow trends, nor does she rebel for the sake of rebellion. She simply moves through life on her own path, making choices based on her own values, not society's expectations. This video is for you, for the women who feel like outsiders, for those who refuse to chase validation, for those who don't seek attention yet command presence simply by being themselves. Because the truth is, not every woman is meant to fit into a category, and that's where the Sigma female stands out. But where did this idea come from? How did it evolve? And why are so many women today resonating with it? In a world that constantly tells women how they should behave, dress, and think, the Sigma female is a quiet rebellion. She doesn't announce her independence, she simply lives it. She's not interested in competing with others. Instead, she focuses on mastering herself. This concept didn't appear overnight. It evolved as more women started questioning traditional roles and expectations. Some women never related to the idea of being an alpha, fighting for dominance. Nor did they feel like a beta, blending into the crowd. They found themselves somewhere else, outside the hierarchy altogether. And that's when the Sigma female archetype started gaining traction. Women around the world began identifying with this idea of quiet strength, of walking alone without loneliness, of valuing depth over superficial connections. Unlike the alpha woman, she doesn't need to be at the center of attention. Unlike the beta woman, she doesn't mold herself to fit others' expectations. She simply exists in her own space, content, self-assured, and completely uninterested in seeking approval. Because for too long, women who didn't fit into the classic archetypes have felt ignored, overlooked, or misunderstood. Society tells us that success means being loud, assertive, and constantly proving our worth. But the Sigma female proves that true power doesn't have to be loud. It can be silent, strong, and deeply personal. So, if you've ever felt like you don't belong, like you're walking a different path while the world expects you to follow the crowd, know this: you're not alone. And you don't need a label to define you. Before we get started, 95% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. If you're here, it means you're curious, thinking differently, questioning the norm, and that's exactly what we're all about. So, if you find value in this kind of content, deep dives, real talk, and breaking free from labels, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more independent thinkers like you find this video, and it keeps this conversation going. All right, let's get into the evolution of the Sigma female and how this concept continues to shape the way women see themselves today. The concept of the Sigma male emerged as a reaction to traditional social hierarchies, particularly the alpha-beta dynamic that had long dominated discussions about personality types. For years, society categorized men as either alphas, dominant, confident, natural-born leaders, or betas, passive, supportive, and more comfortable following than leading. But as the world evolved, so did the way people viewed personality structures. The Sigma male came into the picture as an alternative archetype, one that didn't fit neatly into the traditional hierarchy. He was independent, self-sufficient, and untethered from the need for validation. Unlike the Alpha, he wasn't interested in asserting dominance over others, and unlike the Beta, he wasn't seeking approval or following social expectations. He was a lone wolf, moving through life on his own terms, choosing solitude over forced social roles. Naturally, as this idea gained traction, women began questioning where they fit into this framework. If a man could be Sigma, could a woman? And if so, what would that look like? Thus, the Sigma female concept was born, not as a simple counterpart to the Sigma male, but as a distinct identity in its own right. Women who didn't resonate with the traditional alpha-beta dichotomy began recognizing aspects of themselves in the Sigma archetype. But unlike the Sigma male, whose traits were defined within the context of masculinity, the Sigma female was something different, a quiet force, unapologetically herself, and detached from the rigid expectations placed on women throughout history. She was never just a female version of a Sigma male. She was something more. The Sigma female was strong, independent, and uninterested in traditional roles. Society often tells women they must choose between being an alpha, a competitive, ambitious leader, or a beta, a cooperative, people-pleasing follower. The Sigma female rejects both of these labels. She is not driven by the desire to be the center of attention, nor does she feel the need to conform or seek approval. She moves in silence, with purpose, prioritizing her own goals and self-development over societal expectations. She is neither submissive nor aggressive. She simply exists on her own terms. In the early days of the internet, discussions about the Sigma female were rare. The concept first appeared in niche self-improvement communities and alternative personality discussions, where women started questioning why they didn't fit into traditional female archetypes. They didn't resonate with the boss babe alpha persona, nor did they see themselves as the soft-spoken, accommodating beta type. Instead, they found themselves drawn to something else, a form of power that wasn't loud, a form of confidence that didn't need to be proven, and a form of independence that didn't require validation. As the term Sigma female gained traction, it quickly became a topic of fascination. The internet framed her as a mystery, an enigma, a woman who operated outside of social norms. She didn't seek attention, yet people were drawn to her. She wasn't loud, but her presence was undeniable. She was a paradox, a woman who lived for herself in a world that constantly demanded she live for others. This sense of self-reliance and detachment made her both admired and misunderstood. Some saw her as an ideal, an empowered figure who embodied true independence. Others viewed her as cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. One of the first places where the Sigma female concept gained momentum was on social media, particularly in self-development spaces. Women began sharing their thoughts on what it meant to live life without seeking external validation. Posts defining Sigma female traits began appearing, asserting that she was reserved but confident, independent but not antisocial, emotionally self-sufficient but not detached from meaningful relationships. These early discussions focused on the idea that a Sigma female wasn't defined by the roles society tried to place on her. Instead, she was defined by her choices, her mindset, and her unwillingness to conform. As the idea spread, more women found themselves identifying with it. Many had spent their lives feeling like they didn't quite fit in, not because they lacked social skills, but because they had no interest in playing by society's rules. Unlike the Alpha, they didn't need to dominate a room. Unlike the beta, they didn't feel the urge to blend in. They simply existed as themselves, moving through life with a quiet sense of self-assurance. What made the Sigma female different from other personality types wasn't just her independence, but her detachment from societal pressures. While alpha women sought leadership and beta women found comfort in community, Sigma females existed in their own world. They didn't crave validation, approval, or external recognition. They focused on their own goals, cultivated their own sense of worth, and found fulfillment in solitude rather than social status. As more discussions emerged, the concept began evolving. Some saw the Sigma female as a symbol of empowerment, a woman who had broken free from society's expectations and chosen to live life entirely on her own terms. Others saw her as a reaction to modern gender roles, a counterpoint to the pressure placed on women to constantly seek external approval. In a world where women were often told they needed to be likable, agreeable, and socially engaged, the Sigma female stood apart as a woman who didn't care about fitting into those expectations. But as the idea of the Sigma female grew, so did its interpretations. Some viewed her as a loner, isolated from the world. Others saw her as a fiercely independent woman who simply chose when and where to engage. The internet painted different pictures of her, sometimes as a mysterious, almost untouchable figure, other times as a highly intellectual, introspective individual who thrived in her own company. The truth, however, was that the Sigma female was never just one thing. She wasn't a stereotype, nor was she a fixed personality type. Instead, she was a reflection of a growing movement, women who were redefining their identities beyond traditional categories. As more women resonated with the term, Sigma female communities began forming online. These spaces became places where like-minded women could connect, share experiences, and discuss the challenges of living outside societal expectations. Many of them had spent their lives feeling misunderstood, overlooked, or pressured to conform. Finding a space where they could embrace their natural independence was liberating. These communities reinforced the idea that being a Sigma female wasn't about fitting a label, but about embracing individuality. The rise of the Sigma female wasn't just about rejecting traditional gender roles, it was about redefining what strength, confidence, and independence looked like for women. It challenged the idea that success had to be loud, that power had to be displayed, and that confidence had to be constantly validated. It introduced a new perspective, one that emphasized internal strength, quiet confidence, and self-sufficiency over external approval. Yet with its rise also came questions and critiques. Was the Sigma female just another label that boxed women into categories? Did it encourage isolation rather than healthy independence? Was it truly a path to empowerment, or just another trend designed to sell a certain lifestyle? These were the debates that would continue shaping the concept as it evolved. But one thing was certain: the Sigma female was no longer just a hidden idea on niche internet forums. She had entered the mainstream conversation, challenging traditional narratives and offering an alternative way for women to see themselves. She represented a new kind of strength, one that wasn't about domination or submission, but about owning one's space, mindset, and life on one's own terms. And that was only the beginning. As the Sigma female concept gained traction, its meaning began to evolve beyond just a personality type. It became a visual identity, a mindset, and a movement. Women who resonated with the idea started to define what it meant for them, shaping a distinct aesthetic, philosophy, and way of life. The Sigma female wasn't just an independent woman. She was someone who moved through the world differently, with a quiet yet undeniable presence. This transformation happened in layers, expanding beyond personality traits into lifestyle choices, fashion, interests, and even social interactions. One of the most noticeable shifts was in the Sigma female aesthetic. As more people engaged with the idea, a certain visual style began to emerge: muted tones, minimalist fashion, dark academia, and an overall rejection of loud, attention-seeking trends. This aesthetic wasn't just about clothing, it reflected a mindset. Sigma females weren't drawn to flashy, trend-driven looks that demanded external validation. Instead, they embraced a subdued yet sophisticated style, often inspired by intellectualism, art, and individuality. Dark academia, characterized by classic literature, vintage aesthetics, and an appreciation for quiet, introspective spaces, became closely associated with the Sigma female identity. So did minimalism, both in fashion and in lifestyle, as many Sigma females rejected excess and embraced simplicity, depth, and meaning over materialism and social status. But the Sigma female was never just about appearances. More than anything, her personality defined her. As the idea grew, a clearer picture of the Sigma female mindset began to take shape. She was confident but reserved, intelligent but not boastful, independent but not detached. She didn't seek approval or attention, but she also wasn't entirely isolated. The key difference was selectivity. Unlike the alpha, who thrived on leadership and social influence, or the beta, who found comfort in fitting into social circles, the Sigma female was socially independent. She chose when and where to engage, forming deep connections rather than superficial ones. She wasn't antisocial, she was selectively social, prioritizing quality over quantity in her relationships. This approach to life naturally led to the formation of Sigma female communities, online spaces where women who felt unseen, misunderstood, or unwilling to conform could finally relate to others like them. For many, discovering the Sigma female identity was like finding a missing puzzle piece. They had spent years feeling like they didn't quite fit into traditional categories, neither fully embracing alpha-style dominance nor feeling comfortable in beta-like submission. These communities became a safe space for them to discuss their experiences, share insights, and build a sense of belonging without compromising their individuality. The movement began to spread across social media platforms, self-development forums, and alternative lifestyle discussions. Women from different backgrounds connected over shared traits: a love for deep conversations over small talk, a preference for meaningful solitude over forced socializing, and a strong sense of purpose that wasn't dictated by societal expectations. They shared stories of choosing careers based on passion rather than status, prioritizing self-growth over external validation, and embracing solitude not as loneliness, but as freedom. With this rise in popularity came an important realization. The Sigma female wasn't just an internet trend or an aesthetic movement, it was a reflection of a deeper societal shift. Women were becoming increasingly aware of how traditional roles had limited them, and many were actively seeking alternative ways to define success, confidence, and fulfillment. The Sigma female identity provided an option for those who didn't resonate with traditional narratives. It offered an alternative to the loud, hustle-driven culture that dominated many spaces. It was about strength through self-sufficiency, confidence without arrogance, and success that wasn't measured by external approval. But with any growing concept, interpretations varied. Some saw the Sigma female as a new form of empowerment, while others questioned whether it was just another box to fit into. Was the Sigma female truly about freedom from labels, or was it creating a new stereotype, one that romanticized isolation and emotional detachment? These were the debates that began shaping the future of the Sigma female movement. Regardless of the differing perspectives, one thing remained clear: the Sigma female movement was building momentum. More women were embracing the idea that they didn't need to play by society's rules to be powerful. They didn't need to be loud to be confident, socially dominant to be respected, or constantly seen to be valuable. The Sigma female identity gave them the language to express what they had always known deep inside, that their worth was defined by who they were, not by how the world perceived them. And with that realization, the movement only continued to grow. As with any movement that gains traction, the concept of the Sigma female has not been free from debate and criticism. While many women resonate with the idea of independence, self-sufficiency, and selective socialization, others argue that the Sigma female is just another stereotype, another label that attempts to box women into predefined roles. Critics question whether the term is truly empowering or if it simply replaces one set of societal expectations with another. After all, does embracing the Sigma female identity really promote freedom? Or does it subtly encourage women to conform to a new, idealized version of strength, one that prioritizes isolation and detachment over emotional connection and community? Some skeptics believe that the Sigma female archetype reinforces a rigid standard for what a strong, independent woman should look like, potentially alienating women who don't fit into this specific mold. Instead of allowing for a broad spectrum of individuality, they argue that the term may limit the complexity of women's experiences, creating yet another unattainable identity for women to aspire to. Beyond the philosophical critique, there's also the growing concern over the commercialization of the Sigma female identity. As the idea has gained popularity, it has inevitably been co-opted by brands, influencers, and self-help gurus who see an opportunity to monetize the trend. Courses, books, and coaching programs now claim to offer the secret to unlocking the Sigma mindset, promising women that they too can embody the mysterious, self-sufficient persona of a Sigma female. Social media influencers create content promoting the Sigma lifestyle, selling the idea that true power comes from isolation, rejecting societal norms, and focusing solely on self-improvement. But is this genuine empowerment, or just another way to sell an identity? The self-help industry thrives on providing ready-made answers and packaged solutions, often simplifying complex ideas into marketable trends. The risk here is that instead of encouraging women to define their own paths, the commercialization of the Sigma female could turn it into just another aspirational archetype, one that is sold rather than discovered. And then, perhaps the most pressing conversation of all, mental health. While independence and self-sufficiency are undeniably valuable traits, when does glorifying detachment and solitude come at a cost? Many proponents of the Sigma female archetype emphasize the importance of not seeking validation, prioritizing self-reliance, and maintaining emotional independence. But taken to the extreme, these values can sometimes blur the line between confidence and emotional walls, between independence and isolation. Human beings by nature are social creatures. While some people thrive in solitude, others may struggle with loneliness, disconnection, or an inability to form meaningful relationships. There is a fine balance between being selectively social and being afraid to connect. Does the Sigma female narrative in some cases romanticize emotional detachment? Does it send the message that needing support, seeking companionship, or wanting to be understood is a weakness? The pressure to be unbothered and self-contained could, for some women, lead to unhealthy emotional habits, such as repressing feelings, avoiding vulnerability, and struggling to build deep connections. Strength should never mean pushing people away out of fear of dependence. True empowerment should allow room for emotional depth, connection, and personal growth, not just self-reliance. Ultimately, these questions are important. They challenge the evolving Sigma female narrative and encourage critical thinking about how we define strength, independence, and identity. Labels can be useful. They help us articulate our experiences and connect with others, but they can also be limiting if taken too literally. As the Sigma female movement continues to grow, it's crucial to ask, is this truly about freedom, or is it becoming another rigid framework? Is the message one of empowerment, or is it creating another unattainable standard of what it means to be a strong woman? These discussions will shape the future of the concept, ensuring that it remains a tool for self-discovery rather than just another trend to follow. So where does the Sigma female go from here? As with all ideas, this concept will continue to evolve, shaped by cultural shifts, societal progress, and individual interpretations. Nothing stays static. What is relevant today may take on a completely different meaning tomorrow. The Sigma female is not a fixed definition, but a fluid, ever-changing idea that reflects the experiences of women who do not conform to traditional expectations. As more people engage with the term, discuss its implications, and question its meaning, the archetype will expand beyond its original framework. It will be redefined, reshaped, and reimagined by those who resonate with it. But one thing remains certain: labels do not define you. No single term, movement, or identity should ever dictate how a person sees themselves. The real power of the Sigma female isn't in adopting the label itself, but in understanding what it represents. It stands for individuality, self-sufficiency, and the freedom to carve out one's own path. However, it is important to remember that true independence isn't about isolation. It's about self-awareness and self-ownership. Whether you resonate deeply with the Sigma female concept or feel that it doesn't quite fit, your path is yours alone to navigate. No external framework should dictate your choices, your growth, or your personal journey. The risk with any identity-based movement is that it can become too rigid, exclusive, or prescriptive, turning into yet another box that people feel pressured to fit into. The Sigma female must remain an idea that empowers, rather than a rulebook that limits. Looking ahead, the concept will likely take on new dimensions as society shifts its understanding of femininity, independence, and social structures. Future interpretations of the Sigma female may integrate elements of emotional intelligence, adaptability, and community building, rather than just focusing on detachment and self-reliance. After all, strength is not about rejecting connection, but about choosing relationships that align with one's values. The future Sigma female may not only embrace independence, but also redefine what it means to be strong, confident, and fulfilled, whether that involves solitude, collaboration, leadership, or something entirely different. Additionally, as the conversation around self-identity and empowerment continues to evolve, we may see new critiques, adaptations, and expansions of the Sigma female archetype. Some will challenge whether the term is still relevant in an era that increasingly values fluidity over fixed categories. Others may refine the idea to be more inclusive and reflective of diverse experiences. What is certain is that the next evolution of the Sigma female will not be dictated by a single narrative. It will be shaped by the voices of the women who engage with it, challenge it, and redefine it on their own terms. At the end of the day, the most powerful thing you can do is own who you are, with or without a label. Whether you see yourself as a Sigma female, reject the term entirely, or find meaning in a different identity, your path is yours alone. The future of the Sigma female is not just about what the term represents. It's about the choices you make, the life you build, and the freedom to exist as your most authentic self. The Sigma female started as an idea, then a movement, and now a discussion. So let's keep talking. Let's challenge labels, question trends, and define ourselves on our own terms. Are you a Sigma female or something more? Let's discuss. If this resonated with you, drop your thoughts below. Let's start a conversation.